Canada is quietly facing a question it hasn't seriously confronted in decades. Not about which aircraft to buy, but about whether it still wants to build anything strategic at all. At the center of that question is an unexpected proposal from Sweden. Not a sales pitch, but an industrial offer that goes far beyond a single program. It arrives at a moment when global supply chains are fragile, geopolitical trust is thinning, and countries are rediscovering the value of making critical systems at home. What Sweden is proposing to Canada isn't just a solution for today. It's an answer to a vulnerability Canada has lived with for years, often without realizing it. Welcome to Geocapitalist, where we break down how nations, industries, and alliances quietly reshape global power. In today's video, we explore why Sweden wants to build Canada's next fighter and what Ottawa stands to gain if it does. This story isn't about headlines, it's about long-term choices. If this kind of strategic analysis matters to you, consider subscribing. As always, the visuals used in this video are simulations and illustrative materials created for educational and analytical purposes only. They do not depict real systems, operational details, or classified information. With that in mind, let's begin. Why is a Swedish defense company so focused on building military aircraft in Canada right now? The timing is not accidental. When Saab told Ottawa that building aircraft in Canada could generate more than 12,000 jobs, the message wasn't aimed at the public. It was aimed directly at decision makers. Canada is entering a period where industrial resilience is no longer an abstract concept. Supply chains have proven fragile, geopolitical certainty has eroded, and reliance on external producers carries risks that were easy to ignore a decade ago. Saab understands this context well. Its proposal lands precisely where Canadian concerns are most concentrated: employment, domestic capability, and long-term control. This isn't like selling a finished product. It's closer to offering Canada the blueprint to rebuild a factory it once shut down. The jobs figure itself is a projection, not a government guarantee, but its political weight lies elsewhere. It reframes the conversation. Instead of asking which aircraft is superior, it asks whether Canada wants to remain a buyer or re-enter the role of builder. That distinction matters deeply in Ottawa today. Sweden's interest is strategic. Canada has a mature aerospace workforce, stable institutions, and access to global markets. For Saab, Canada is not just a customer. It is a potential production partner. And for Canada, the proposal arrives at a moment when the cost of not having domestic industrial options is becoming harder to justify. Is the promise of 12,000 jobs a realistic projection, or simply a number designed to attract political attention? This question sits at the center of the debate now unfolding in Ottawa. Saab's estimate is not a government figure, nor is it independently audited. It is a corporate projection based on production, sustainment, research, and indirect supply chain effects over many years. Critics have been quick to point out that the number appears ambitious, noting that it would rival the size of Saab's own aerospace workforce in Sweden. That skepticism matters, and ignoring it would weaken the discussion rather than strengthen it. Job projections in defense are less like a headcount and more like a weather forecast, useful for planning but never exact. The value of Saab's claim lies not in mathematical precision, but in what it implies about scale. Even a fraction of that employment would represent a significant shift for Canada's aerospace sector, particularly if work extends beyond assembly into engineering, maintenance, and long-term support. As one senior Canadian defense analyst put it, industrial capacity is built over years, not announced in press releases. That perspective captures the core issue. The debate is not whether 12,000 jobs appear overnight. It is whether Canada is prepared to invest patiently in rebuilding industrial depth rather than postponing the decision again today. What is Sweden actually offering Canada beyond a single aircraft platform? At first glance, it is easy to see this proposal as another defense procurement story. But that interpretation misses the deeper structure of Sweden's approach. Saab is not positioning itself as a supplier delivering finished equipment from abroad. It is proposing an industrial relationship built around production, sustainment, and long-term technological participation. That includes localized manufacturing, Canadian-based maintenance and upgrade capacity, research partnerships, and integration with domestic supply chains. Buying an aircraft solves today's requirement. Building it at home solves tomorrow's uncertainty. That distinction explains why this proposal resonates so strongly inside Canada's policy circles. Aircraft programs are measured in decades, not budget cycles. Once a platform enters service, the real value shifts to who controls its evolution, its upgrades, and its integration with national systems. Sweden's model is designed around that reality. Saab's pitch also extends beyond fighters. Surveillance platforms like GlobalEye are part of the same industrial logic, reinforcing the idea of Canada as a regional hub rather than a passive end user. This matters because it changes how risk is distributed. Instead of relying entirely on external decisions, Canada gains the ability to sustain and adapt systems domestically as strategic conditions evolve. In practical terms, Sweden is offering Canada something rare in modern defense markets: participation rather than dependence. That offer is not without cost or complexity, but it aligns closely with Canada's long-standing desire to balance alliance commitments with meaningful industrial sovereignty. Why does this proposal resonate in Canada now, when similar offers failed to gain traction in the past? Timing explains much of the shift. Canada's industrial debate no longer exists in a stable global environment. Recent disruptions have exposed how quickly access to critical components can become uncertain. At the same time, geopolitical alignments are evolving in ways that place greater value on domestic capability. Against that backdrop, proposals that once seemed optional now feel urgent. For Canada, this feels less like a new proposal and more like reopening a conversation that was frozen decades ago. The country once possessed world-class aerospace design and manufacturing capacity. Losing it did not happen overnight, and neither will rebuilding it. But awareness of what was lost has returned to public and political discourse. The question is no longer whether Canada can afford to rebuild industrial capability, but whether it can afford not to. A former Canadian aerospace official once warned, "Once industrial skills disappear, they don't come back easily." That observation carries particular weight today. Skills erode quietly, supply chains migrate gradually, and institutional memory fades without immediate consequences. Then, when strategic conditions change, rebuilding becomes costly and slow. Sweden's proposal intersects directly with this concern. It does not promise an instant revival, but it offers a structured path toward regaining capacity. That makes it different from past offers focused narrowly on procurement outcomes. This time, the conversation is not about replacing aircraft. It is about restoring industrial relevance in a world that increasingly rewards those who can build, adapt, and sustain their own capabilities. How does this industrial proposal fit with Canada's decision to acquire the F-35? At first glance, it may seem like the debate should already be settled. Canada has committed to purchasing the F-35, with deliveries scheduled over the coming decade. From an operational standpoint, that decision addresses immediate requirements for interoperability and frontline capability. But procurement decisions and industrial strategies are not the same thing, and this distinction is where the discussion becomes more complex. One model integrates Canada into a global supply chain. The other places the supply chain on Canadian soil. Under the F-35 program, Canadian firms can compete for contracts, but participation is mediated through a multinational framework largely controlled outside Ottawa. The benefits are real, yet they remain conditional and subject to external priorities. Sweden's proposal, by contrast, emphasizes localized production and sustained domestic involvement over the life of the platform. This contrast helps explain why Saab's offer continues to attract attention even after the F-35 decision. Ottawa may have chosen an aircraft, but it has not fully resolved the question of how much industrial autonomy Canada retains. Defense programs last for decades, and the industrial ecosystems surrounding them often matter as much as the systems themselves. Seen this way, the discussion is not about reversing past decisions. It is about complementing them. Sweden's approach offers an alternative path for rebuilding industrial depth, one that operates alongside alliance commitments rather than in opposition to them. That nuance is often missed, but it sits at the heart of the current debate. Why is Sweden able to offer this level of industrial participation when so few others can? The answer lies in how Sweden has structured its defense policy for decades. Unlike larger powers that centralize control over exports and technology, Sweden has treated industrial sovereignty as a national priority. Its defense sector was designed not only to equip its own forces, but to remain adaptable, exportable, and nationally controlled. That philosophy shapes how Swedish companies engage with partners abroad. Sweden treats defense exports less like transactions and more like long-term partnerships. This approach allows for deeper technology sharing, localized production, and greater autonomy for the receiving country. It is also why Saab has been willing to structure deals that include domestic assembly, software participation, and long-term sustainment in partner nations. The goal is not dominance, but durability. This model contrasts quietly with others that rely on tighter export controls and centralized decision-making. Without naming competitors, the difference becomes clear in practice. Some systems arrive as finished products, with limited room for national adaptation. Sweden's model, by comparison, is designed to be integrated into a partner's industrial and institutional framework. For Canada, this matters. It means cooperation without dependency. It means access without surrendering control. And it means that long after the initial contract is signed, Canadian engineers, technicians, and institutions remain active participants rather than passive operators. That capacity to remain involved over time is what makes Sweden's proposal strategically distinctive, and why it continues to resonate far beyond the immediate procurement debate. What does Canada actually gain if this proposal moves forward, even in a limited form? The most immediate benefit is economic, but the deeper gains are structural. High-skill aerospace employment does not operate on short cycles. Engineers, systems designers, and maintenance specialists anchor long-term industrial ecosystems that extend into universities, research centers, and secondary suppliers. Even partial localization of production would strengthen Canada's position in sectors where expertise compounds over time rather than depreciates. This isn't a short-term stimulus. It's closer to planting an industrial forest that takes years to mature. Once established, such ecosystems generate resilience that is difficult to replicate through procurement alone. Domestic sustainment reduces operational risk, shortens response times, and creates flexibility when global conditions shift unexpectedly. These advantages rarely appear on balance sheets, but they shape strategic outcomes. Beyond employment, Canada gains leverage. Participation in design, maintenance, and upgrade cycles creates influence over how platforms evolve. That influence matters when missions change, technologies advance, or geopolitical assumptions shift. It allows Canada to adapt systems to its own geography and priorities rather than waiting for external approval. Importantly, these gains do not require abandoning existing alliances or commitments. They operate alongside them. Canada remains integrated within NATO while strengthening its own industrial base. That balance, cooperation without dependence, is increasingly rare. Sweden's proposal does not promise instant transformation, but it offers a credible pathway toward rebuilding capabilities that once defined Canada's aerospace standing. And that possibility alone has strategic weight. What historic choice is Ottawa quietly being asked to make right now? At its core, this moment is not about selecting a platform or negotiating a contract. Ottawa is being asked to decide what role Canada wants to play in an increasingly fragmented global system. One path preserves the status quo: reliable access through alliances, steady procurement, and limited industrial control. The other path is more demanding, requiring patience, investment, and political will, but it restores a degree of agency that has slowly eroded. Ottawa isn't choosing between suppliers, it's choosing between two futures. In one, Canada remains a capable operator within larger systems designed elsewhere. In the other, it begins reclaiming the ability to shape, sustain, and adapt critical technologies over time. Neither option is risk-free. Building capacity domestically is complex and slow, but dependence carries its own costs, particularly when strategic environments shift faster than procurement cycles. Sweden's proposal forces this choice into the open. It does not guarantee success, nor does it minimize the effort required. What it does is make the trade-offs visible. It places an alternative on the table that cannot be dismissed as unrealistic or purely symbolic. For the first time in years, Canada is confronted with a concrete opportunity to rebuild part of what it once let go. Whether Ottawa acts or hesitates, the implications will extend well beyond any single program. Decisions made quietly today will shape Canada's industrial posture for decades to come. This story was never really about a fighter aircraft. It's about how nations adapt when the world around them becomes less predictable. Sweden's proposal has reopened a conversation Canada postponed for a long time about sovereignty, capability, and the value of building rather than buying. No decision has been made and no outcome is guaranteed. But the fact that this debate is happening again matters in itself. Canada now faces a familiar dilemma in a very different world. Alliances remain essential, but resilience increasingly comes from having options. Industrial capacity provides those options quietly, long before they are needed. Whether Ottawa chooses to pursue this path or not, the implications will shape Canada's role within its partnerships and its ability to respond independently when circumstances change. At GeoCapitalist, we focus on these moments before they become obvious, because the most consequential shifts in power rarely arrive with announcements. They emerge slowly, through decisions made far from the spotlight, and understanding them early is what allows countries and citizens to see where the future is quietly being built. If you found this breakdown valuable, check out our next video, where we explore how nations shift wealth and influence across borders. And don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us keep these analyses independent and impactful. Until next time, stay informed and stay ahead. See you in the next video.